You are listening to A Bazaar Podcast. My name is Sixten. I am your host, and I'm joined today with my co-hosts, who I'll let them introduce themselves.
Yes, hello. I am MetallFenix, one of the co-hosts of A Bazaar Podcast.
Hi, I'm Walter Coolest. I'm a top 100 Bazaar player, and I'm one of the hosts of this podcast, A Bazaar Podcast.
And our first ever guest, a warm round of applause for Snazer. Take the scene.
Hello, welcome. I'm Snazer, aka Max. Been a top player and a very avid gamer of the Bazaar, and thank you for having me here.
Sure. So the agenda for today, Metal, where is the... I can't see the thing.
Yes, I
Oh,
can
got
run
that.
through the agenda for today. This will be our
Oh, okay,
recurring
sure.
format. We will start off by
Okay.
doing some first-time introductions, since you might not be familiar with all of us, especially some of us. Wink, wink. Then we'll run through what we've been playing this week. We've got a topic of the week. Today we're bringing you a day one deep dive. We'll move on to discuss the state of the meta. We'll feature a board of the week, and we'll wrap it up with our socials.
Yes, so let's do some introductions. So in case you don't know who I am, my name is Sixten. I am a top 100 Bazaar player. My peak rank was 5. I love Dooley. I also dabbled in Vanessa. I will never play Pig. I am a streamer as well. 2610 is my stream handle. And yeah, I think that covers me. And then Metal, if you want to make a longer introduction about yourself.
Yes, will do. I am someone who streams on and off MetallFenix on Twitch and Discord. I've been following the Bazaar for a very long time. I'm one of the original Indiegogo backers, but I am not, at least currently, quite at the same prowess as my co-hosts and guests here. My peak rank is 655. I've been playing a lot of various card games and other games throughout my days as a gamer. Hopefully, maybe I'll catch some of you listeners on my next stream. Passing it over to Walter.
Howdy, I'm Walter. I'm a former professional Magic the Gathering player, and I just got into the Bazaar pretty recently. Not even when the open beta first came out, but a little bit after that. And I just love this game, and I'm really excited to talk about it today on the pod.
Okay, and should we do Snazer again or...
Yeah, if you want to go into any more details, maybe how did you end up playing the Bazaar? Have you been for a long
Yes,
time?
a little bit. So I was like a very long Hearthstone gamer from the closed beta time, with a very few breaks until very rather recently, and played a little bit Battlegrounds as well. That was like my main game, at least. Um, and I mean, therefore, I knew Reynard from the beginning, sort of when he came up, and I knew the Bazaar was existing since Reynard announced it, but it was never like clear in the beginning how this game is gonna turn out. And then Crip was actually advertising it and said he had like friends and family access, and was like blown away. And then I was like, well, Crip has generally a good idea and is very honest about his opinions. So like I think a month or two before the closed beta started, I got like a wind of it, followed it, bought my founders pack, waited for it, and since I started playing the game, I have not touched another game. I've been playing for most of the time. I play like computer games since then, which can be quite a few hours, and grinded ranks. Loved it. Fell in love with Julie as well for most of the time. Was holding rank 1, I think, for the majority of the first, like, let's call it season there. And yeah, that is me, Snazer.
Yes. So let's move on to what we've all been playing. I think Snazer, you can continue here. Like, what have you been focusing on since the new patch? Feel free to tell us.
So with last patch, I started to learn Pygmalion, and this patch I started to learn Vanessa, because it was very obvious with the release of the patch notes that it feels it felt to me that Vanessa will be by far the strongest. She was already kind of strong, and she did like rather get a buff by the bug fix on Bloodhound, where all the other heroes got a small or harder like nerf hammer treatment. So I was learning a little bit Vanessa, and I'm doing quite well, I think, by now on Vanessa. I did also a small co-op stream with Rarish. He taught me a little bit, helped me a little bit to understand a few other items and lines, and yeah, that's just a small summary.
Okay, and so more specifically, what kind of Vanessa builds do you feel are strongest? Maybe we'll get into that later.
More specifically, what I have been playing, like, so I went to Vanessa. I started to play the ammo build. The ammo build is kind of bursty and was very strong early, but people adapted, and then you could fall short. Then I started to pivot more towards one weapon build and aquatic build. Felt though aquatic is a little bit inconsistent, at least partly, and stuck more around with the one weapon builds at the moment. But there are still like sometimes lines, because Vanessa has such a big variety of good items that you can build like basically nearly like not everything, but quite well. And I feel like we're like shifting in the meta though today again. So it's like a little bit rock, paper, scissory, what's dominant and what's countering it.
Okay, yeah. I think I agree with most of what Snazer said there. And I want to hear what Walter has to say, because I know he has experimented with Vanessa specifically for this podcast. So Walter, what has been your experience?
When the patch came out, I played on Wednesday and Thursday. I played a ton of Duelie, and I was doing extremely well with it. I was actually running everyone over. On Friday, I kind of had a harder time with it. I think people got more of a wind of how to get better econ in the early game, which was something that I latched onto really quickly. And I switched to Vanessa in preparation for this podcast. I'll be playing Vanessa all day yesterday. I played a bunch of games, played some this morning, just kind of a better feel for the overall meta. Because obviously, I want to say it's like 60% Vanessa. Like if you actually had to put percentage numbers on what are you playing against in your runs, I would say it's at least 60% Vanessa.
Yes, and Metal, what have you been playing?
Yes, so ever since the patch, haven't had time to chuck in a ton of games, but the ones that I have been playing, I've mostly been doing Vanessa. I used to be quite a fan of the style of Vanessa, where you did things with aquatic items, especially when aquatic was flexible. I used to love playing Cove Captain's Wheel. So now that I'm seeing sort of a resurgence in that kind of playstyle with Vanessa, I've been trying to spend some time getting more familiar with what that looks like now. And also, I never played much single weapon Vanessa, but I've noticed that it is very prevalent this patch. So I've been spending some time trying to learn that too, getting used to which of the single weapon carry weapons you might want to transition into at which times. But it's mostly been Vanessa.
Okay, and as for me, I have played basically what Walter did. So for the first 2 or 3 days, I did Duelie. The first day, I had a lot of success. The second day was atrocious, so I switched over to Vanessa. And then I had initially quite a bit of success with Ammo Vanessa. And I also was coached by Ragnar, who is the second best player currently on ladder. He taught me the ropes on Ammo Vanessa. But then this weekend, I tried Ammo Vanessa, and of course, as Snazer said, the meta has adapted. Everyone was playing these control mid-range counters, and then I performed poorly. So I tried some single weapon Vanessa, and I had a bit of success, but I still feel like it is a bit of a rock, paper, scissors, which might be the next topic. I could actually just transition to this state of the meta. I think that frustration for me right now.
Move
Sorry,
to
is that
topic of the week before.
topic of the week. My bad. Okay, so let's save that for later, and let's maybe move on to the topic of the week, which is the day one of this patch. And what we mean by that is specifically, literally, the day one of every game. So not day one of the patch, like Wednesday, but the first day of each game. And does anyone want to take the lead here?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think we can.
I have so much.
We could
Yeah, I have
pass it
so
off
much to say
to
about
to
this
our
one.
guest first,
Yes.
perhaps, and then
Okay.
we'll go the rounds again. So, Snazer, how have
All
you
right.
been feeling about day one? What's your go-to priorities?
So, so the first big change, like there are like two big changes, right? Once is the starting kit, and the other one is you're not leveling anymore. The starting kits, I don't like them so much because it's a little bit, you don't know what's in the box, and you have no agency to more than there's a random item or a random skill, and you know the rarity and the size, which is like a little bit, a roll with the dice. For that reason, I value starting kits more or less solely by one metric, and that is how much gold do I get out of that. And everything else is like a minor persuasion, but it's like not the main thing, because in the end, if you get like a good item, you're happy, but in most cases you get like probably not a good enough item to stand on its own, and you can lower pretty hard. So what I do there is to say, well, everything that gives me the most money is the most value to me, because then I can buy stuff. And since the next thing also there is the B1, B2, I will easily already get like silver rarity of one or multiple items, depending on how the economy is going, as well as how many items I want to upgrade and found early that I want to upgrade. The next thing is we have like this day one, you have a lot of agency now back on the part later after the starting kits, right? Because now there is like, first of all, the furry event. That is a little bit important, because on day 2, if you take a furry event and the rogue scrapper, you can be level 3. So what you need to do is find 1 extra XP, and the mountain pass may not show up, but what is more likely to show up is this furry thing. So I prioritize on Vanessa like a friend, because she has friends, pretty highly, as well as already start to look for a star chart, because that's in the long run pretty helpful for the dogs event. So those are the first things that are rather like deterministic by the long run of the game to do and prioritize. Other than that, there is like a lot of variety what you can do nowadays, since we got a lot more options. I prefer personally go more the economy line. So I will take a lot of economy options and very wisely choose where to shop, and for those reasons I mentioned earlier. And then the last reason is find a scaling item, but I am very carefully there, and I'm very lavishly more or less interested than in all the economy options, just because gold is a scarce resource throughout the whole early and mid game, and I need obviously money to find my items. Yeah, I think that is it. And then depending on the build, it is though still a very good option also to go more shopping, roll your gold away to find your build items earlier. I think that is something that, for example, Rarish is preferring, where I go a little bit more the economy line and be a little bit greedy. Might be from the pick days. Anyway, I think that is a summary for day 1 so far.
Yeah, that sounds
Okay.
perfect. That's a lot for us to digress. I think we can kind of break it down into the 3 separate topics of kind of what do we think about the starter kits? How has that changed how you play day 1, and what does it mean kind of more broadly? I thought I could show here on the screen quickly for those of you who might be video watchers, but we have, of course, the new encounter tiny furry creature, which is the one that we are referring to with the furry event. It gives you 2 options. You can pet it to gain max health, or you can scare it to get a silver tier loot item. However, if you have a friend, a toy, or food, you can also play hide and seek to gain 1 additional XP. But before we discuss that one more in depth, I do think everyone's eyes are going to be on the new starter kits. Sixten, Walter, what do you think? Do you agree overall with Snazer's conclusions on how to evaluate them?
I mean, I
So
do. Oh, sorry. Go
let's
ahead.
okay, Walter, go ahead first.
Okay, I was gonna say. I mean, I do agree that when you're selecting your kit specifically, you want either gold or silver items that you can sell to become gold, and that those are the two. Like, you definitely do not want a bunch of skills. I I did a run where I tested, like, what if I just took every skill? That's not good. But you definitely want to go for the maximum goal value, and then I think the best way to play early game is to look to use B1, B2 to have a huge slingshot of your economy. That it's not really worth it to focus on winning day one so much, like the day one PvP, that it's extremely coin flippy no matter what you do, and that instead it makes more sense to set yourself up to be maximally paid off by B1, B2. And then that's the strongest way to kind of catapult your build into the mid game. And that what your items are specifically can be fixed once you click the node that gives you 12. Like, B1, B2 is so overpowered. It's actually, like, I think that by the end of this patch, we will all think that B1, B2 is is like the most overpowered node in the early game, because the number of tricks and little things you can do with it to get insane economy in the early game is like really off the charts. And we can go into some of the like tricks and strategies you can use if we want to, but we had a very instructive game 6 on your stream, where the one where we bought Chariot and kind of just got 40 gold or something on like day 3. Just some unbelievable,
So Chariot, for the guys
economic
who don't know,
injection.
is the curio item that says when you sell this, give your items X value. So at bronze, it is 1 value. What we did is we upgraded it with the upgrade hammer to silver. So it gave all my items 2 value. And then I had, gumballs, chocolate,
And then
loot.
we went to Barcoon and we like got like 40
Yeah,
gold.
and like 40 gold. And that, because you can both find Barcoon and B1, that makes that strategy not that dice rolly. You can actually consistently do this now. But so let's return to the kits. So for like inside of me, there are 2 wolves. There is the Sixten that believes in Reynard's vision for the game, which is that every run should feel fresh. You shouldn't be able to force a build. You should never know. Like when you start a new run, you shouldn't have a fixed build in mind. And that Sixten, the naive and hopeful Sixten, loves the kits. I think conceptually it is amazing. I have had incredible runs where like I got a restorative Uzi. I would never ever play a restorative Uzi ever. Like that is a horrendous enchant in the late game on an Uzi. But early game, if you just keep upgrading that Uzi and giving it damage, it is like a freaking insane heal item. Like it is so crazy, and that is such a cool experience because of the random nature and the enchant nature. What kits allow you to do is get these unique experiences where you get like an item with an enchant you would never traditionally upgrade or enchant, and then you get to experience that as your win condition, which I think is awesome. So that side of things, like conceptually, I love the kits, but then in practice, in the implementation, I think there is a lot of room for growth here. I find, as I joked on Snazer stream, I feel like I tried to teach Bazaar as chess in the past, but now I am forced to teach it as Balatro or poker, because these early kits is like, sometimes you get a royal flush, other times you get a 2-pair, and like you can't basically, and that is how it is. Like you will just sometimes win from your kit. Like if you get a double barrel at silver with freaking right-handed as your starter, like good luck to any opponent, right? Like that is, you got your win condition handed to you. You will win 5 games in a row just from your kit, and I'm not sure how you can have this cool Uzi enchanted experience while still having it be balanced. Maybe that is impossible. So that is why I'm saying, like, I am conflicted. I want to believe in this, but I understand that if they cannot balance this, I think for the sake of like game balance, I would probably be in favor of going back to how it was before. But if they can balance it, I think kits are very cool, and that is like my spiel here. So I don't know if anyone has anything to add, or if we should move on. But
Yeah,
I'm
no,
basically
How would you feel
absolutely.
about a more curated kit, like where there is
Exactly what I
maybe
was
like
about to bring up. Yeah.
like 25 possible ones that are more like, and they have like not extreme, like not the level of like we're giving you silver double barrel plus left, like that's too much, but like maybe like a couple bronze weapons and a strength is one, and maybe like a lighter and a your final flame or something is, you know what I mean, like something
so I
where
don't
you
like
get a
that
little
either,
bit of
because
guaranteed synergy.
the problem with that is that then you like, if there are 25 and you know all of them, then there isn't really that much of a like the imagination of, oh, what am I gonna get this time? Like it will be a bit like the old system where we had gold skills. Like you knew all the gold skills, and then basically it wasn't like, there is a bit of a sense of wonder right now for me, where like when I get these crazy items,
Because they're
it is very
truly random, yeah.
yeah, because it's like that is the thing. I want there to be a sense of truly randomness. If there are only 25, eventually we will have mapped out, like we will, because we are sweaty tryhards, we will have mapped out how you play every single permutation properly. Like, oh, you got the lighter start, then you should go to pyro, you should do this and this and this, and then it's like, it gets stale. So I'm more in favor of perhaps just like not like maybe reducing, like don't give us maybe like gold items, don't give us, I'm not sure how to do it. I feel like it's gonna be very hard to make it balanced, because it's also depending on the heroes. Like for some heroes, some items are just like double barrel is so strong. So should you just remove the strong items from the pool? That is a hidden rule. I don't like hidden rules. I think it is very difficult, but I admire their dedication to trying to experiment. So like I don't blame them for this, but I think it is gonna be very hard to ever make this feel fair and balanced. So Snazer, do you have anything to add
I
here?
actually have
Or Metal?
a comment to add where I thought, for me specifically, I remember the day one of the patch, we'd all read the patch notes, we'd seen that they were going to contain starter kits, but no one really knew what a starter kit meant at the time. And for the longest time, like even just earlier that week, I'd been talking to people about how the thing that can feel lame and frustrating with day one, as it was previously, when you had a selection of 4 silver items and you picked one of them. And one of the big reasons why I like playing Dooley so much compared to the other characters is that the raw variance of the items oftentimes meant that one of two things would happen. You would have a day one selection of items where one thing was the obvious instant pick. This is just the correct choice. Silver double barrel, silver regal blade. There's no questions to be asked here. You click the item. Or you get a selection that's complete junk. You could have Piranha and Chum in the same selection. Wonder which one you want. It led to a lot of these strange scenarios where it just felt like day one, the selection, you just spin a slot machine. It's not very fun. And so I remember that a lot of people, when they read the patch notes, they thought, oh, we probably finally have some level of curation to where maybe at least if you're starting with a poison item on Vanessa, you'll get a poison skill. That was always the big frustration in the older meta, where we got to pick one item and then one skill after. If you picked an item and didn't get the skill, it felt like you weren't playing the game for 2 days. And then we started playing the patch, and it was a complete mess of things that didn't have any synergy. I think the thing that's the most telling is that, as Snazer was saying, you look at it and you just go, I'm going to pick the one that's most gold because the variance is too high for me to evaluate any other factor. And what that loops back to, what I see as the core of the issue, is that now, once again, more often than not, we have one choice and one non-choice, and then you pick the choice and hope you got as lucky as you can. And that's the main thing that I would love to see them tackle, is to make it feel so that the starting selection you make and the very first node on day one feels like it's actually a meaningful choice that you have any amount of agency over. And if they do that by making them perhaps more curated, at least to the point where you can't end up with 2 weapons, a poison and a burn skill, I think maybe we'd be all the better for it. If it leads to long-term a more solved game, that could almost be a form of skill expression to learn all the permutations, at least for day one, and then maybe after that we can have it continually branch out. But I think the main thing I want is just for day one, node one, to not be such a feels bad moment when you get a bag full of junk.
I agree, for the record.
Yeah, I think I want to point out two things. One is like all I say is like coming from the approach how I play the Bazaar, and that is probably comparable, a unique way where like min max a lot and want to win a lot. I think like tryharding as hard is not the majority of players, and so there's that. I personally think it would be better to have those RNG events later on, but like have like a little bit of consistency early, and these starter kits, how they are at the moment, take a little bit of agency away instead of giving it. That is like the whole issue for me there. It wouldn't mind there if we had like those sort of events on day 4 or 5, because then you can be like, okay, I have this, I prefer like having 3 different skills over an enchanted item or the other way around. As far as if I have to guess though, what the idea of Reynard is to exactly get away of this, you only see 4 items are played in the early days and all the other items falling behind. He wants to have like this creative way of playing where you just make use of every single item, and he's like shoving it down our throat and says, well, you have to now do it. And well, I think in an ideal world with a lot more items, as well as probably at least more power levels, like the less power level difference between those items, that might work, right? If items are in comparable, like very good balance to each other, especially let's say all the bronze and silver items that you will have in those starter kits, and it's not like this one item is so much better than the other item, it might work. I think that's what I want to add there.
Sure. So let's move on then perhaps to B1, which I think is just as important for the meta.
Actually,
Or is that
we might
okay?
pivot that into B1, B2 is something that occurs on multiple days, and it's getting about time to move on to our thoughts on the general state of the meta. So I think that might be a perfect sort of pivot point to talk about how do we feel the state of the meta looks, and especially with B1, B2 then.
Sure. So can I take the lead then?
Yeah,
I,
go
I
on.
had
State of
I'm
meta,
gonna actually
fire
start
off.
with the thing I was gonna discuss earlier with what I've been playing, and my main frustration is not B1. It is not, well, it is kind of B1, but it is mostly that I feel like this is the most rock paper scissors meta we've ever had, and I wanna elaborate. So when I played Dually, I had a horrendous run and then I had an amazing run. The difference between those two was a single item. It was called Isochloric Freezer. What happened in the second round was that I had an Isochloric Freezer, and then half my opponents were playing single weapon Vanessa, and then it didn't matter what my rest of board was. I won because I permafroze their Submarine or their Cutlass. I rolled a matchup they couldn't win, like unless they had Radiant, they literally cannot do anything. That doesn't feel very rewarding. It didn't matter that I tried to build a good board. The only thing that mattered is I had this one item that just wins against rock, and then in the earlier run where I played freaking Armor Core Dually with Shield. And then I said to my viewers, okay, guys, I'm against that Dually. If they have Burn here, it doesn't matter what I do, I'm going to lose because I don't have a Force Field, I don't have Start of Game Shield. So if they have, I'm just going to lose. And of course, I faced Omega Ray Burn. And then I knew from second one of the fight that I was going to lose. And so my frustration with the meta right now, and this also applies to like Ammo Vanessa, being countered by Control, and then single weapon Vanessa being countered by Dual Loot Freeze, is it just feels like at the end of the day what matters right now is not so much your own board, it is who you face. If you face rock when you have scissors, it's over. And I don't think in the past, like in the past, it hasn't quite been this way, to this extreme. I feel like in the past, if you just pilot a build well and it's strong, it will be strong against most things. Of course, there will be hard counters, but I feel like right now, for me, it is just I feel like I have less agency, basically. Again, if I play dually, I find Isochloric Freezer. I pray to fight single weapon Vanessas, I get 10 wins. If I instead face a bunch of double whammy pigs, then I lose. So that is my frustration. I would like to hear what you guys have to say about this rock, paper, scissors thing specifically, if you agree. I know Walter told me he thinks rock, paper, scissors is healthy. So Walter, maybe you can elaborate
I
a
mean,
bit.
I agree. It's a very rock paper scissors meta. I don't agree that that means you have less agency necessarily. I mean, from my experience in Magic, in Magic, there's something called sideboarding where you change cards in your deck in between after the game one because you play a best 2 out of 3 match, and you change the cards in your deck to suit what your opponent is playing. And I think that the rock paper scissors meta makes sideboarding, or whatever you want to call the equivalent of Bazaar, where you're holding items for specific matchups in your bag and then utilizing them in those matchups. That is a form of skill expression that's kind of unlocked by the existence of rock paper scissors. If we're playing a meta where the best deck is Monitor Lizard and all the good players are playing Monitor Lizard, and you just build your board to beat Monitor Lizard by either playing Monitor Lizard or something that you think can counter it, and that's that. Like, that's the strategy. But if you're playing against different stuff, if you face a pig and you're saying, okay, I really like Isochloric Freezer in this matchup, whereas you might not want it in like the dually mirror, for example, that's actually a form of skill expression in itself. Now, maybe like items like Caltrops and Isochloric Freezer are too like up and down, right? They're too strong against what they're strong against, and they're too weak against what they're weak against. But that's a balance lever that can be adjusted. And I think the concept of like holding stuff in your bag to bring in against a specific opponent, especially once we get more than 3 heroes, is actually going to be actually a huge opportunity for skill expression. And it's actually it's like not it's not so like doom and gloom for strong players. I think it's a different kind of skill expression. And I also think that, like, of course, the best players are going to do the best. Like, Snazer, I know you were rank 1 during the Lizard meta, and you had it perfect, right? You understood it like front to back, and that's how you express your skill in the game during that meta. When the heroes are more balanced, of course there's going to be rock paper scissors. Like, that is the natural kind of way that metas settle in what I'm gonna classify this as a card game. In card games, rock paper scissors are a regular feature of metas all the time. Usually when there's not rock paper scissors, it means that one strategy is overly dominant and OP. And I think that has been the case for a lot of the previous patches, where either Lizard was OP or Fixer Upper was OP or whatever, and that the best players usually gravitated toward the best strategies, and then they played it the best. So they were very easy for them to attain consistent results, compared to a more balanced hero meta, where even if you're playing Ammo Vanessa really well, if you run up against the lifesteal submarine, you know what I mean? You can still lose, no matter, you might be a better player, but in the long term, that is because the heroes are balanced, not because you got worse. It's just how it looks when there's more parity between the heroes.
I think
Yeah.
that's oh yeah, go ahead, Snazer.
I feel like the matter is actually kind of fine. I think what's happening surely is, and that point is true, we are losing a few rounds here and there because it's a little bit more rock paper scissory. But I think especially if you consider the change in how ranked is evaluated, it doesn't matter as much anymore, right? It's a fully okay if I throw a few rounds away, or like not throw, but like lose a few rounds because the rock paper scissors sometimes is like nudging the loss into me. I think like though that is totally fine if you still get enough wins and give yourself a few edges here and there, and you can still win. I think the meta in general is pretty nice because I can probably name 6 or 7 builds on Vanessa that are kind of different in the end, that are, even though some are more and less likely to get, are probably can easily give you like 10 wins. So I feel like the depth is there, and you have a lot of possibilities. Though, and that is the sad part. It feels like that is only true on Vanessa, and it is definitely not even remotely true for Dooley. So I think the state is actually quite fine. I learned quite a bit on Vanessa by now, and therefore I feel it's not that bad at all. It's just like we're playing all Vanessa because Vanessa is, for me, super far the strongest and versatile, and has just the highest how should I say, the highest strength on average on all the items and builds.
Yeah, I think a concept that I would like to introduce in the mix together with the rock, paper, scissor meta, of course, rock, paper, scissor refers to when certain styles of boards might counter a different style of board, like the force field dually builds tended to be very favored into pufferfish Vanessa, because if you don't pressure the shield, the damage ramps insurmountably. But to me, it's also always, both in card games as a whole and in the Bazaar specifically, the major frustration doesn't necessarily come from the rock, paper, scissor effect, because I agree with, as Walter was mentioning, that's somewhat inherent. Decks or boards, or however you want to call them in this new emergent auto battler genre, inherently do tend to have more or less favored matchups. However, the thing that can grind my gears a little bit is primarily polarization, which refers to not whether or not the deck is favored into another deck or another board, but rather by how much. Are we talking that a Crow's Nest Vanessa on average beats a Ammo Vanessa, or are we talking about Crow's Nest Vanessa? Even a bad Crow's Nest Vanessa will completely obliterate even a good ammo board. And that's the thing that I feel sometimes now, specifically regarding one board that's been quite meta, Crow's Nest Vanessa. And previously in last patch, I do think that we saw a similar phenomena with Fixer Upper Pygmalion, where they're very polarizing in the sense that almost the only way to consistently beat them is to have good sources of freeze, early sources of freeze, and ideally instant sources of freeze, as well as stacking as many of them as possible. And the reason I'd like to bring that up and hear some perspectives on it is because I think it poses a potential issue down the line of what happens if we have these really polarizing boards where you need specific tech to counter them, and not all future heroes might have access to those specific techs. It's usually one of the things that make me feel like a hero might feel terrible to play in a certain meta is if there is a polarized matchup that you can't tech against. Because the concept of being able to tech, being able to sideboard, as Walter put it, does rely on the fact that there has to be a tech sideboard card that beats the thing you're struggling against, and it has to be something that you can reliably get. Otherwise, it kind of feels like it's just a little bit, did you find your silver bullet, or are you screwed at 8 or 9 wins? So I'd be curious to hear, does anyone have any input on that perspective?
I also have a question to Walter. When you play in Magic tournaments, do you know your opponent's decks in advance, or how are you able to
No,
take
not
against them?
usually. When you get to the, like, if you get to the very end stages of the tournament, you do, because before the top 8 they give out the decks, but they give out the deck list for everyone to look through. But No, typically you sit down against your opponent, and unless you happen to see what they were playing in a previous round, you do not know what they were playing, and then you change your deck for games 2 and 3 of the match.
Okay, so I think my problem is then on the Bazaar, you cannot know in advance what build you're facing. Like Vanessa has she has two fundamentally completely different archetypes, which are aquatic and weapons. They are so different that they could be their own classes. One is a control scaling, the other is more upfront damage aggro. And so if you see a Vanessa, you can think it's a 50-50 between aquatic or weapon, but then of course weapons can be single weapon, it can be ammo. So my problem with this tech idea is that is still just glorified gambling for me. I mean, of course, if there's one archetype that is so oppressive that is everywhere, like everyone as is playing ammo, then sure. But I still feel like it is not. I don't think your win rate will, like, I don't believe that you can reliably in the Bazaar guess what opponent's going to be playing to the point where you take in an item that if they don't play that, that item is basically dead weight. And so if it's dead weight, then you are basically making you're crippling yourself for a guess. So I understand the principle in Magic, but I struggle to see how it can apply when you have no way of actually
think
knowing.
about if you're
Actually,
like,
before
I mean, there's
Walter,
already items in the
before
game
you
that people
chime
do
in,
this with. Yeah.
I think that would maybe be a perfect opportunity. Snazer, he's the highest ranked player in this call. I'd be really curious to hear your thoughts on, do you consider tech something that you actively go for, or are you more generically just trying to play what you think is the best board in a vacuum?
That depends on the matter and what build I run, right? Sometimes you do this because, for example, in general, just by general thing, Pygmalion is obviously very susceptible to slows. So you tacked in the past a lot more slows against Pygmalion, whereas Vanessa's you sometimes wanted to rush faster. It also depends, do you have a flex slot, right? Do you can afford that? So for example, in the last patch, not this patch specifically, there was on the fix upper build, there was normally one flag slot. And against all the Pygmalions, you run an icicle. But against dualies, you don't run an icicle because you rather want to have an active target that can soak a freeze itself or does something, because freezing an item on a dually board is not the same as freezing an item on a Pygmalion board. So I think it is true to do that. But a little bit back to the discussion we started earlier about the state of the matter and the issues. I think you're all, like, I have a different view of that. If we say, like, and that is the premise we have to take. At the moment, there's basically one hero, and that's called Vanessa, and we're ignoring that you could sometimes reliably get wins with Pygmalion, and definitely I don't think Dooley is viable as soon as people figure out how to play Vanessa. I think you can still have a lot of skill expression and a lot of high win rate on Vanessa if you play her well, because there are a lot of builds that are actually good, and it's not that the crow's nest is as oppressive. If you have like a lot of slow, that is should often be good enough that you can also raise at least a decent amount of the crow's nest build. And so that opens, for example, and I did it on stream like a couple days ago with Rarish, it opens up actually a Lighthouse Proboscis line, for example. That's a super good build. Surely, you know, it's like a more of a unique build, and it's not as easy to find the pieces maybe as a weapon build, because that is growing, like, or a one weapon build, because those are growing easier and organically. But I feel like you can still have a great time and a lot of wins with very, very, like, many builds. And there's like later a board of the week I showed you where I did like something completely different, and it went like quite well, and I want to talk about it. So I don't think skill expression is dead. It's just like, if you want to have skill expression on Dooley at the moment, it's like a little bit harder.
And
Okay,
yeah,
so
that seems right,
okay.
like Walter's ballpark. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I did have a lot of success on Dooley this patch, but I think it's I don't think I was really high on him on Thursday. I think I went something like 9-10 wins in 10 games or something on Thursday with Dooley, and I was very high on him. And I think a lot of it, And then after playing Vanessa, I'm less high on him. And the reason is that I think a lot of my advantage was coming from my B1, B2 abuse. And that basically I was winning the whole early mid game because of my like what I was doing in the econ plays, not really because of the character, but because I was actually just stat checking everyone by because like I think in this meta, the value of relax, chocolate bars, temp boost, HP are all off the charts. And it's a way to like especially if your board has inevitability, like Burn Dooley has good inevitability in the mid game. If you just have a high enough HP bar, you just beat everything. There's a HP bar number that beats every opponent you could possibly face if your scaling is fast enough. So like in the mid game, I was using my B1 B2 economy to convert that as quickly as possible into HP and into skills like defense grid and other stuff that are purely for racing. And I was having a lot of success racing. And then when I started playing Vanessa the last 2 days, I could just do the same thing on Vanessa and it's better. So I also think
could you explain to the viewers how you go about like preparing for B1? Because I think this is also a form of skill expression. So if you like do a short guide on how
the way I play the first couple of turns of the game is I take whatever kit gives me the most bronze items, and then I also value stuff like spare change and stuff really highly. Basically, I want to fill my entire board and stash with bronze items, and then I want to B1, B2, and then sell all these garbage silvers for profit. Then I want to go to Curio and like reload on gold bars, chariots, the items that when you sell them give plus slow upgrade in a really overpowered way where you can get multiples of them easily because there's 2 different ones on Curio, and you could get a Clamora that slows 3 of their items for 7 seconds, and it's like extremely strong in the mid game. So there's a lot of abusive stuff you can do, not just the chariot. The gold bar is crazy. You should always buy gold bar from Curio. It's actually completely free real estate. It's 0 opportunity cost. It upgrades from silver worth 5 gold to bronze worth 5 gold to silver worth 10. So if you have one in your bag and when you go B1, B2, it is like extremely profitable. And same thing with the chariot.
On the topic of new encounters, I was also curious on 2 things. One leading into specifically what you were mentioning. Jungle ruins get to bronze tier loot items.
Yes, that's one of my go-tos. Yep.
Yeah, and the other one is we do also have something that you kind of have to mention when you're talking about state of the meta currently. Redesigned Lost Crate with silver tier upgrade hammer in order to do item duping of bronzes. How have you guys been feeling about that mechanic?
So I can explain here. On Dooley, this was powerful because we have a lot of bronze items we want to duplicate, like Uzi, and I believe is Isochloric Freezer a bronze starting item?
Freezer is a bronze
Yeah, it is.
currently,
It starts bronze.
Yeah, so there are a few. But then when I started playing Vanessa, my chat basically informed me that, well, with the exception of like Pearl, upgrading on Vanessa is kind of bait actually. There aren't that many bronze items you want to like small specifically. You wanna like on Vanessa you would rather just upgrade your double barrel, upgrade, your silencer and stuff like that. Maybe actually silencer is a duplicate target, but my understanding is that duplication is a bit more efficient on Julie than Vanessa on average. But
and
I could be wrong on this.
To add some clarity, I've put up the upgrade hammer here. When you sell it, you upgrade your leftmost at silver bronze tier item. And what happens is when you buy an item from the store, it can only combine with an item on your board or in your stash, assuming that they are the same rarity. So if you have any item in bronze already on your board or in your stash, and you go into a shop and you see the same item, if you use the upgrade hammer to upgrade the one on your board or in your stash to silver, and then buy the bronze copy from the shop they won't combine, and you'll instead have two copies of the same item, one at silver, one at bronze, just to make it perfectly clear to everyone what we're talking about. And then, yeah, Walter, Snazer, how have you been feeling about hammer tech? Is it something that you tend to look to use, or are you more agreeing with Sixten that it's kind of a bit niche?
I mean, it's probably depending a little bit on the hero, as mentioned earlier. On Vanessa, I tried both things, like the hammer tactic as well as the B1, B2. And I think here it is important to understand neither of those things are necessarily something you can force, because B1, B2 might not show up because you need very specific items. And in most cases, especially the hammer was like not worth it. So I did it in the beginning. I figured out it's there are too few targets, and it's a lot more consistent to just like play actually a little bit as before this patch, where you just like buy your stuff, find your build, do the stuff you want to do. And if you stumble onto those things, you stumble onto those things. And if you don't stumble onto those things, you're still good. Just like try to win, have a great time, and that is what I did.
I kind of think that duping is whatever. It's a little bit overblown. I think there are good uses for the hammer that go beyond duping. So like we mentioned, the chariot that was good for B1 B2 is also extremely good hammer target for as an econ play. And so you like it's not just about B1 B2, it's about changing your mindset when you're playing Dooley and Vanessa to more of like the pig mindset. Like I need to use my stash as a resource, and there are opportunities for free econ now available to Dooley and Vanessa that weren't there before. And I especially pointing out for Dooley and Vanessa because I think Pig's bag space is already really taxed. That a lot of his cards are already demanding so much of his stash that he has less potential to. I mean, obviously there's like loop and stuff, but that doesn't really, you don't really get that until a bit later into the game. The real power of B1 is in like days 2 through 4, and where you can really actually amass a huge amount of econ for that point in the game, and then you can use that econ to get whatever builds you want, because you can go to the shops. Like you're not stressed about your economy. You can pursue the items you want at the shops that have them, and that's a good feeling. I mean, Dooley's issue is that he doesn't have a lot of end game boards that win, but for Vanessa, it feels great to just be like, "Yep, upgraded my whole board. Now I can sell my whole stash and then just go shopping, and then just reload, get the exact board you want." Or you can go to Curio and look to reload on more bronzes to like repeat the play and get even more value. So you have a lot of options with B1 B2, and it doesn't have to be like as committal as I'm describing it. Some of it is just like take the spare change node on day 1 and just hold those change in your bag and like give yourself the space to quote unquote get lucky, because the node is pretty common, and so is Barcoon, and there's a lot of free gold to be had in the game if you know where to look.
Okay, perfect. That was a great discussion on the state of the meta, and I think it's about time that maybe we top it all off with the board of the
Oh,
week.
hold on. Can I do one thing? I wanted
Yes.
to do the
One last
announcement
time.
here. I'm gonna.
Yes, you had a special surprise for us. Do you
Okay.
want to
So
send me anything for that I should
yeah,
show?
I just posted it in the general chat if you want to put it. I discovered something really cool about the game. So if you guys might have noticed, you haven't faced the skill corrosive toxins in the last 2 patches. It wasn't in any of the patch notes, but I thought it had been removed. What actually happened is corrosive toxins is now a Mac only skill, and Mac has 2 other unique skills that are in the game files that I don't know if anyone's ever seen or talked about
Oh,
these.
fascinating. I'll go ahead and I'll read this
If
out
you
to you,
can zoom in
just in
maybe a little
case
bit, you
we
can.
have any
Yeah,
audio-only listeners. I think it'll also look a bit better
yeah. If you want to read them
when the
out,
video is live. But we have corrosive toxins. You're probably familiar with it. It was in the game briefly, commonly used on Puffer Vanessa, for example. It's now a gold plus skill, Mac exclusive. When you poison, enemy weapons lose 2 or 4 damage between gold and diamond, as well as the silver plus skill Emergency Draught, which reads: the first time you fall below half health each fight, gain 20, 30, 40 regeneration for the fight between silver, gold, and diamond, as well as large poisons, a bronze plus max skill, reading: your large poison items have 4, 8, 12, 16 additional poison depending on the rank, from bronze to diamond. Take it away.
yeah. I just think these are cool. I mean, I don't know how strong or good they are, but Mac is coming, so get ready. Like they already are. They're trying to keep it secret. They don't put this stuff in the patch notes, but they removed corrosive toxin from Dooley and Vanessa's skill pool to give it to Mac, and didn't put it in the patch notes probably because they didn't want this to be discovered. But obviously, like with the How Bazaar data scrape, all this stuff is in there. There's also some like unfinished skills for Stell, I think, that like don't have any text. There's some interesting stuff if you want to pursue How Bazaar. That's kind of could be a preview for the Mac release and open beta, and it's just really exciting. I'm super excited for Mac and having a fourth character. I think it'll make the meta feel more balanced just by existing, and people will appreciate that.
Famous last words before Mac is completely overpowered for the first month.
Truly. Snazer, do you have any particular thoughts regarding? Are you much of one to theorycraft about future characters, or more think we'll see when he drops?
I have not any thoughts there, no.
Yeah, fair enough. Then we'll move on to your board, this lovely boulder run that you have provided. I'll read out the things that I note, and then you can give us the rundown just for any, again, audio-only listeners. We got a gold silencer. We got the spyglass at diamond. What I think is a deadly boulder at diamond, the diamond captain's wheel, and a gold dock lines. I see some noticeable too: start of combat, haste a weapon, and when you haste, freeze, I believe.
Yes. So, like, when I said like earlier, there's a lot of variety. I think this is like showing that quite well. And it was like yesterday off stream, like after the stream, where I had a rough start. I didn't find any directions at all. Not good weapons. No, I didn't. I maybe Anyway, it was a rough game, and then I just ran into this boulder on I think day 6. And the only thing I had by that point, more or less, was the start of combat rush for 3 seconds, the rush skill, like the haste start of combat skill. And I just were like, okay, I mean, why not try it out? And it turned out amazing. I won every single round after that. Got a little bit lucky with like the opponents and freezes, but in the end, if you look at this board, we full hasted a boulder that was in the end 10.9 seconds, but over the most of the time around 12-ish seconds, which is when it's full hasted around 6 seconds or below in the fight when you actually like get off. And since it was even critting, the little bit of shield they might have had was not noteworthy. And that felt very, very strong of a board. I tagged in a little bit of slow. I tagged in the spyglass because therefore I had enough crit on the boulder, and it was more about delaying one weapon builds from bursting me down. And then there's the standard silencer, and it was like a very good run in the end, and I had a great fun because I bouldered like probably 10 opponents in a row. Yeah, that was just like a fun build that is actually super strong. And I mean, fights tend to take longer than 6 seconds, and after 6 seconds, your opponent is dead. Surely it's a unique build. Surely it's not replicable all the time, but it's something have in mind. Maybe Boulder is back.
Yeah, I think that's a great conclusion to end on. I do think that one of the cooler things you can do in a game like the Bazaar are these diamond, large item, hyper late game, rather specific pivots, like Boulder, or of course it's a silver and above item, but I've seen a lot of Powder Keg Vanessa lately. Very similar, just hey, it's late game, what if we just hit someone for their entire health bar?
It's definitely a cool board, and the board for our next episode is actually going to come from the community. So we are going to be taking submissions on Discord for next week's or next episodes, I guess I should say, board, and we'll be discussing it in the next episode.
And you can also submit the boards to the podcast mail, which will be abazaarpodcast@gmail.com. And that is kind of a perfect segue as well into our final topic of the week, which is our socials. Let's start with our guest for this first episode, Snazer. Where can we find you?
You find me under Snazer on Twitch. There is where I'm streaming most of the time at the moment, and I do have a small YouTube channel under the same name. There where I just upload the VODs though. There is no curating and editing going on, and yeah, feel free to check me out.
And Walter, you on any socials currently?
You can find me in Snazer's chat, in Sixten's chat. You can say hello if you see me there. I'm not streaming currently, but if that changes, I will be sure to let people know.
Yeah, you can find me as MetallFenix with 2 L's on twitch.tv. Probably a YouTube channel in the works if I start to get a lot of good games to highlight to upload there, but currently just the Twitch. Also active on, of course, Sixten's Discord. You can easily find me there. And Sixten.
Sure. So I am hoping to eventually change my Twitch name, but for now, you can find me on Twitch at 2, and that is the number, 610, and those are letters. Same for Blue Sky, same for YouTube. And as they've said before, I also have a community Discord server. We'll probably link that in the description, whether it be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. That is where you'll be able to, post your bills if you don't want to mail them to us. And I think that covers my socials. So
Yeah,
I want
we'll
to
put
thank.
everyone's socials in all the descriptions on all the
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
get everything up there so you can connect with us easily.
So a big thank you to Snazer for being our first ever guest. He was incredible. And Snazer, if you have anything last words or something, we will round down the podcast together as hosts after, so you can leave whenever you want. But
No, thank you for having me here. It was a great pleasure. I hope the Bazaar is turning out to be a very successful and great game. I have high hopes. I also hope the community stays as friendly and open and helpful as it is now, because so far you have been great, everyone has been great, and I wish everyone the best.
Yeah,
Yeah,
truly.
community has been insane in the last 2 weeks, and everyone's chat, like so many gifted subs, everyone's popping off. It's been so positive recently. It's great to see.
Yeah, shout outs to the Bazaar community as a whole. You're all lovely, otherwise there wouldn't be a podcast.
all right, guys. So thanks to all the listeners, first-time listeners. And I think we'll basically round down. So our future schedule, I think, will be that we're going to record on the weekend. And then Metal, do you have any more details about, when the episode itself might come out?
Yeah, it will remain to be seen what the editing and uploading, mostly rendering workload looks like. I'm hoping that we may be able to do regular Sunday night, evening European time zone releases, but if not, you can most likely expect the podcast to be live on Monday should have a much more clear information on that on future episodes, but something along the lines of Sunday, Monday release schedule, weekly podcasts. Every week we're planning on, as far as availability allows, having a new guest on. We'll cover a different topic of the week and some community builds for the build submission. For now, we'll be uploading this to YouTube, which is where, in theory, I assume you're listening to this, where we'll be A Bazaar Podcast, but we'll also be looking to upload to any other relevant audio streaming platforms such as Spotify or Apple Music.
All right. So, well, is there anything else to add here, or are we done?
I think that's it. I think that's episode 1 in the can.
That's a wrap.
Nice.
Nice job,
Thanks
guys.
for
Wow, guys,
watching
that was-
A Bazaar Podcast.